podcast number 2. Today we have a new guest and her name is Dudu. Dudu, introduce yourself a little bit.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Goose, better known as Isaiah by birth, but thanks for having me. My name is Dudu Zanin. That's my full name, but my friends call me Dudu because it's just a tad bit easier to remember. I'm 24 years old and I work in mortgages.
Okay, beautiful. Since my podcasts are related to mental health, Dudu, I'm going to ask you a question. How do you define mental health and why is it essential to address this and be open with how your mind is working?
Well, I think mental health in itself is quite a niche topic to talk about, but I define mental health as the wellness internally. That doesn't only include the mental well-being, but also the physical mental health, because mental health, the way your gut reacts also affects your the way your gut reacts to situations also affects the way your dopamine levels are and essentially how your outward appearance is. So essentially for me, mental health is how your mind, body and soul are connected as a whole and how they produce external results.
Okay, that's awesome. That's a good way to put it, to be honest. Can you share us Can you share us a little story behind how mental health has had an impact on your life and what you've overcome and what you've experienced?
So right now I think I probably said 24 earlier, but I'm actually 25. I don't know why I said I'm 24. But for the past probably 10 years since I was 16, I've probably suffered on and off with mental health issues. And what I mean by mental health issues is I've suffered from anxiety and bouts of depression. It wasn't officially diagnosed until actually only a few weeks ago. I went to the doctor so long story short, I've been sick for a long time. It's been kind of hard for me to have a period of more than 6 months without having an infection, without having periods of exhaustion. So it's been a while since I've suffered from just feeling not okay. So when I went to the doctor for my third throat infection in the last 3 months of the year, I asked him, is there any other reason why I could be getting sick so often? And he said to me, well, there are other reasons. We could actually test your K10, which is essentially a depression test that we took. And my score was pretty high for the time being. So this is not to say that he officially diagnosed me with depression on the spot, but he did say your mental health could be affecting you physically and this could affect you getting sick so often. So essentially the state of my mental was making me physically sick. And I've known this for a while, but it's just something I hadn't really wanted to face because it's quite a tough topic coming to terms with your mental health. And to say you are depressed, it's quite a strong statement because people label you as the depressed person. A lot of conversation has happened whereby with my mom, I'm like, okay, do I have to start taking medicine now? Do I have to go for therapy? And I don't want to be medicated 24/7 just because I feel like I don't want the physical repercussions of medicine, but that's also because I haven't done enough research. Just word of mouth basis has affected me. But I've also had a misconception or preconception about therapy because I find it very hard to talk about my feelings and emotions. So this is already a big step. Thank you for allowing me this platform to come and talk about it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a lot of issues I have to deal with on my own mental health. So it's not easy.
Yeah. Thank you for talking about all that stuff, Dudu. That actually means a lot for you to come on here and express yourself. Going into that whole aspect of you struggling to express yourself, what actually made you come to that mindset that it's not good to express yourself? Because I feel like that's a stigma that's been around for a while. And prior to me obviously starting Goose, I was in the same mindset. And what caused me to come to that mindset was just people talking around you and that whole concept of you're not a man if you express yourself being pushed onto our society, and it obviously had some sort of impact. But then when I overcame it, I saw a lot of benefits that came out of it. But what ruined your understanding of expressing yourself?
I think obviously when you see me, you see a black woman. The misconception that a lot of black women face is that they are expected to be strong, and it's not only strong once in a while, it's strong all the time. So the weight and pressure of having to always be almost perfect, I think kind of rested on me. Because as I said before, my first maybe bout with depression started when I was probably 16, and normally that's the time when you have exams. So essentially, there was not necessarily external pressure, but my own internal pressure that I wanted to succeed extremely bad. So, not to get all nitty gritty and stuff, but I would have to study obviously to stay up awake. So I found I fall asleep very easy. So it was very hard to stay awake. So I would end up having to do little things to try and keep myself awake, and it's like you end up self-harming to try and do the most extreme things to stay awake, all in the hopes of saying, okay, I need to succeed, I need to succeed. That was me at 16, and now 25, almost 10 years later, a similar pressure is still on me, but not external. It's just my own internal pressure, which kind of couples up with a bit of anxiety, where I feel like I have to be this upstanding person, whereby if I don't have my job in order, I don't have my house in order, I don't even have a house, all these small things that we put pressure on ourselves. And then I feel like as Black women, no one really hears our stories. It's such a painful thing to talk about, but often Black women, even in social media, you'll see Black women are only in two folds. It's very good now. There's a bit of improvement, but Black women are often ridiculed for their appearance. We're ridiculed for the way we talk, the way we even have our physical attributes, whether it's too big, too small, we don't have enough of something, we have too much of something. We're always constantly under scrutiny. And having that pressure as a young Black woman growing up, more so having to have moved over so many different countries, because I've lived in Zimbabwe, I've lived in South Africa, I've lived in Mauritius, and now Australia. My mindset as a Black woman has changed drastically. In Zimbabwe, obviously, there was still a bit of physical stress, but I felt more, I could look across the street and find someone who looked like me. But now living in Australia, finding a Black woman, it's not as hard to say that there are no Black women, but it's definitely, you have to keep your eye out to say, oh, there's another Black woman, and we have a Black woman thing, Black people thing. If you see another Black woman, you do the like not thing. It's like a common thing, but it's just like, it's a way to show that I see you as you are, and I don't need you to do anything other than just be yourself. So a lot of the times as Black women, we don't have those spaces, but we try to give ourselves those spaces, but no one else gives us that grace.
Yeah. Damn. That's a lot of information.
I'm so sorry, it's probably...
No, it's amazing though. It covered a lot of aspects, and I see why you would have that pressure. It's more because of the community around you. So when you were talking before, Dudu, I noticed that you were talking about societal pressures for Black women in general. And I wanted to go into the concept of social media. Social media is a big thing. Everyone's exposed to it in this day and age. Do you believe a lot of that pressure would have come from social media?
That's a really good question. It's got me thinking a bit. That's why I'm a bit stumped. I think when I first think of social media and Black women, the main thing I think about is image, obviously. But I don't know if it's necessarily a good image, because in social media, Black women are often either ridiculed in social media. This might be controversial a bit, so pardon me.
Yeah.
But we have portrayals of Black women in the worst aspect. We have Black women being made fun of. We have comedians, obviously, not as many in Australia, but a lot of comedians in the USA who make fun of how Black women speak, how we dress, how we talk. So you have, I don't know if this is too controversial for the podcast, but it's essentially the gist of it is that Black women's stereotypes are amplified on social media. Whether we're supposedly ghetto, or we are bombastically offensive, just small things about Black women are always like magnified on social media. And I feel like social media definitely has made a ground for Black women to constantly be attacked. And unfortunately, I feel like there's so many platforms that don't create safe spaces for us as Black women on social media.
Yeah, that's insane. I feel like that is definitely a thing due to one of my mates, Eunice. Like when she was on TikTok and stuff like that, she's actually talked about being exposed to a negative environment, people just commenting really rude things, offensive things, and I can actually relate to that from my mate talking about that stuff. It isn't good for you, because it's a quantity amount of people's opinions and stuff being pushed onto you. It's a lot of ideas, and they'll just confuse your brain. It'll mess a lot of your thoughts up, and I can see how that will affect your mental health. Do you believe that you've been affected by that personally?
I think the way I've been affected is quite interesting because it's not the most outward thing that someone would look at me and call me per se ghetto. But I think that as a black woman, you're not allowed to be yourself. You're not allowed to be, if I am a loud person, so be it. Let me be a loud Dudu. But don't label me a loud black woman. So unfortunately, a lot of the times that I laugh too loud, I dress a certain way, it's expected of me because that's how social media might have portrayed me as a black woman.
Yeah.
But also the whole concept of black women being too strong. It's always in the cinema we watch, in the books we read. Black women are known to be the strong type. Unfortunately, in medicine as well, it goes beyond the shallow forms of consumption. It goes deeper into institutions. It goes deeper into our literature. Black women have literally been operated on without anesthesia because we're labeled as strong.
Yeah, I heard about that. That was messed up.
How crazy is that? It's not even too long ago. That's the problem, you know.
So that was still a thing till this point in time.
So how it has changed is that black women in the medical industry are not listened to. So let's say a woman's giving birth, they will not like listen to her pains. She could literally be hemorrhaging to death, but they won't listen because they're like, oh, your kind can withstand this pain. And this is not. I wish I was kidding, but the fact that Serena Williams, one of the strongest women, or not even black women, strongest women, almost died in childbirth, is quite insane to think about. And obviously, it isn't limited to race, because that's also another situation whereby women in healthcare is poor. It's extremely poor. Obviously, there's been improvements. I will take that into note. But the reality is that women of color are disproportioned in healthcare. And obviously, I feel like I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but anytime I talk about
it's awesome.
talk about one thing and it always leads to another. It's like it's almost like the snowball effect of everything.
Yeah.
How I view myself in social media and how media views me and how reality views me. And then it all trickles down to how institutions also view me.
Yeah.
So yes, the most important thing is that it's affecting me. I
It's
always wonder.
definitely affecting you, and like even people that say it doesn't affect them, it would subconsciously still have an impact on their thought and how they act around specific people and stuff. And at the end of the day, you just want to be yourself. You just want to be yourself, have a good time, express yourself, and without being judged. And I can see how that definitely would have an impact on you. So stemming off what we're just talking about, do you believe you can be yourself in Perth? I feel like that's a good question because it's a bit closer to home, so we'll go from there.
I think Perth is quite an interesting city to say because you have I don't know if you have a very vast demographic, but you do have pockets. So you have pockets of ethnics and you have pockets of non-ethnics. So I guess everyone's an ethnic. But not to be cancelled, don't cancel you guys, don't cancel me. But I think I find it a bit hard to be myself in Perth. But to be fair, I'm probably the most I've been myself in Perth. I don't know if that makes sense. I think when I came to Perth, I compared myself a lot to stereotypes, and not necessarily my own stereotypes, but the stereotypes of a beautiful Australian person. So in Australia, to be candid, the definition of beauty is someone who's blonde, smaller,
surfer girl kind of.
Surfer girl aesthetic.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being that, let me tell you now. Because at the end of the day, mental health is supposed to support who you are as a person. But I think the missing point is that the person that they uplift, it comes at the expense of everyone else. So if you're not the surfer girl, if you're not the blonde white girl, you're not beautiful. And then we come into smaller criteria whereby culture has tried to shift it around, whereby if you're a black girl, you have to look a certain way. You can only fit into that specific box. If I'm supposed to be a beautiful black girl, I need to have a small waist, big bunda, as we say.
Yeah.
And my skin must also match a paper bag test. The paper bag test is basically like a Kohl's shopping bag. I need to be lighter than that.
Yeah.
And my skin color is obviously a bit darker than a Kohl's paper bag, so I've already lost on 3 points. I don't have a bunda that's bombastic. I don't have a small face. All these factors are against me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like setting like a beauty standard and having that beauty standard. A lot of people constantly comparing themselves with this beauty standard, and if they can't reach it, they believe they need to constantly do something to like look like that person. I feel like that kind of pressure is negative on a lot of people. I feel like that even affects me, to be honest. Like a lot of people portray having big pecs, abs, strong shoulders, all that kind of. A lot of people portray that through like influencers, like fitness influencers and stuff. I constantly see all these good in shape men. I'm like, damn, I wish I need to pick up on my diet. I need to do this. But like at the end of the day, that's not really a passion of mine.
Oh.
So like you're constantly drive, all these goals are being set for you because you're constantly wanting to achieve all this stuff, but then you just lose focus. So like me wanting to have that ideal body, I don't know if that will fit in what I want to do. It won't necessarily support what I want to do. I want to start my own business. I want to help spread awareness for mental health. Obviously, I want to maintain a good physique. I want to look good, but it's not, I don't need to look like these influencers, but they've set that standard. And I feel like being exposed, that goes into the social media concept again. Like just being exposed to so much different stuff corrupts your brain and just affects your mental health in overall, to be honest. But so when I was at work the other day, me and my mates were talking about a term called colorism. Um, what's your understanding on this? I don't have too much knowledge on that word and stuff. Is there, if you give us a brief definition on the word?
I think colorism is quite an interesting topic
Mm.
because it's very new almost. It sounds like a new thing, but it's actually been around for ages. So basically, colorism is whereby, not necessarily within a race, but the misconception is that if you look a certain way, which tends to be lighter, you get treated better. So the benefits of colorism is you are almost not necessarily white passing, but people of a fairer skin tone are treated a lot better than people who with a darker skin tone. So colorism trickles down into attraction, but also into the workplace as well. Beyond that, you can just have different races treating you better because you're lighter. You can have your own skin folk, my skin folk who are darker than me, treating me less than because I'm the same skin tone as them, or like lighter than them but not as light as they want me to be. So colorism is quite a sad topic, to be fair, because the way black women are defined as in 2013 is very different to what would have been defined as in 2000. I say this, what I mean when I say this is, who's the first black woman you think of when I say black woman?
Oprah.
Oh, that's actually quite good. That's quite good. That's quite good because Oprah is, you see a black woman, and this is not to say that if you are mixed or light skinned, you're not a black woman. Yeah. But the image of a black woman has been changed to be so light skinned. So a lot of people, when you think of black women, the first person I might think of is Zendaya. And I love Zendaya so much because she's done a lot for the community. And one thing about Zendaya is she actually fights against colorism because anytime she gets offered a role for a lighter skinned person, she avoids it. She wants to go for the roles that are made for the white woman. So that's why she auditioned for Ariel. She auditioned for MJ on Spider-Man. She will do roles that want to fight colorism. But basically, the point of colorism is that people of fairer skin tone are treated much better than people with a lighter skin tone. And that is very damaging to our culture because I myself, I don't view myself as less because I'm not light skinned, but I wonder how people view me. I wonder, because I don't have curly hair, which is also a form of... I just wonder how people would treat me if I don't have curly hair, if I don't pass the back test. It's all these things that come into my mind, and it does affect me a lot because there's actually a market for bleaching your skin as a black woman because you want to look lighter. It's crazy. People literally change their complexions just to fit into societal pressures, and like that affects your mental health, because at the end of the day, who you are, if someone told you it's not enough.
Yeah, that's actually messed up. I'm not gonna lie. I was unaware of that. Colorism. It's now that I understand it, I think I have seen a couple of my mates experience it. It's not good because you just naturally you just want everyone, if they're the same ethnicity, at least you want the same people to support you, or like so you don't feel left out. But now everyone's just going against everyone, and I reckon that's a very negative thing, to be honest. Mental health and relationships, Dudu. Do you believe that mental health has had an effect with your relationships or relationships had an effect with your mental health. Do you believe you can like correlate with any of these?
The second question almost made me spit out water. That's not even in my mouth. Let me tell you now. Oh my gosh. I remember, like, literally not even too long ago, like 6 months ago, one of my best friends made me psychotic. So basically, the gist of the story is that I was talking to some person and they ended things with me because of a little misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And my mental health took a plummet. Only because how I viewed myself in that situation had...
Hey guys, sorry we cut out a little bit there. Dudu, continue.
Yes. So basically, we were a bit young and goofy, last year, young and goofy. Standard, as you do with your best friends and prank nights and all that. But essentially the gist of it is that my mental health was really bad after this. I didn't even understand it at the point, but I would be crying at work. I'll be driving home from work and I was crying because I'm like, oh my gosh, the one guy who's looked at me with any form of attraction, I've ruined it. I've ended it because I was like silly and goofy. I think the main reason why I felt very jaded by the situation is because for the longest time I didn't find myself desirable because of what I look like, and that's also because of how I viewed myself in regards to society. Bringing in a bit of colorism, obviously, and the pressures of being in an Australian environment.
Beauty standards,
all these things are piling up, and this one guy finally looked at me like he wanted me. Mans was looking at me like he was hungry.
Damn, we got minutes, bro. It'd be like that sometimes.
It'd be like that,
Yeah.
So I put a lot of my self-worth and self-respect into that situation, and when it was gone, mental health took a deep dive because I was like, where do I go from here? I let a lot of my personal integrity go in that situation because I wanted to hold on to what I thought was good for me. And I think that's the big thing about mental health is that when you suffer from it, you take moments as they come. So when you have something, you want to hold on to it so tight, it like, because you don't want it to end. And when it does end, your mental health is shattered because you have...
It gives you a sense of value. It makes you feel happy, and it's normal to feel like that though. Like when something nice happens to me, you just need to understand some things are just temporary, and it's just not always gonna work. It's a bit of a shitty thing to be honest, but that's a thing called life. Like
that's the thing.
That's just how life moves. It's unfortunate.
Unfortunately, my mental health says that's not life. That's the end of the world.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, so yeah, it's been really tough, I think, for me having relationships because I have a very warped idea of my self-worth and what I look like and my value in regards to society. So it's been really hard for me as a black woman to date in Perth, not even just in Perth, but like in other countries I've tried dating in. And it's not like a small thing because I know a lot of black women, I'll just say black women because I'm a black woman, but obviously I'm aware that other races go through similar things. Also,
talking about your own personal experience.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. I relate to what I know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in that statement, I represent a lot of black women who go through the same things I go through. And I just hope that one day we'll be able to feel confident in ourselves and comfortable in loving ourselves first before we expect that love from someone else. And I'm still learning that every day,
I feel like a lot of people are, to be honest. Like, even myself, I feel like I haven't given myself enough, like, appreciation where I've gotten up to right now. Like, I wouldn't have expected that I would have a business and, like, gone good at a gym and stuff like that in uni. I wouldn't have expected this for myself maybe even a year ago. Like, I wouldn't expect it. You just need to appreciate where you've gotten instead of constantly setting all these goals without noticing your improvement in life and valuing yourself. What have you done, to be honest? What have you done to start working on your self-love and the self-appreciation for yourself?
Lie to myself.
Lie to yourself?
No, I'm kidding. There's the new term called delulu because you're like delusional.
Okay, yeah.
If you feed yourself the lies, you can help.
Naturally, you start to believe it and stuff like that.
Well, which is like a form of positive reinforcement. I'm not going to say I'm perfect because obviously 10 minutes from now I could literally be looking in the mirror and crying. I could be thinking about something and just break down. But I think the most important thing that I'm trying to do is give myself rest because I'm exhausted.
You work a lot. You're here by yourself. Your family is all away. It's understandable. You got a lot of pressure on your shoulders from your life as well. So like little things like that, you kind of, it would be nice to have a relationship to take your mind off stuff. This is why you constantly like refer back to it and stuff. I do the same thing, man. Like constantly busy, busy, busy. You just want that little peace spot and have that someone there to like comfort you and make you feel good. And it's good, but it's not something to look for. Like how you mentioned before, you need to start to appreciate yourself, value yourself, and then not only that, once you do get into a relationship, you can both provide value for each other instead of like weighing each other down and making each other feel worse and stuff from that. If you go into it with a negative headspace, it can affect both sides. I get that. Like it's one of my mates was going through a similar situation where he wasn't happy with himself and he was in a relationship, and then she wasn't really happy with herself either. She wasn't happy with her position in life. She had goals, and then she had to weigh it down and bring it down, and they just brought each other down slowly, and then they ended up breaking up. But like it's just more, just work on yourself in the meantime. Like I feel like just constantly keeping yourself evolving, learning, make yourself happy for where you are, and then you guys can actually just come together and keep adding value because you guys are in good mindsets. For you, Dudu, just you're doing good. You're smashing it, man. Like be happy with yourself.
You're doing good. Because
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at all this. This is
Right.
you.
This is Stan.
This is juice.
Drag. But like I was talking, like you're in a whole different country. You're away from your family. You've got good friends. You're well known around here. Everyone loves your sense of humor, bro. Like you're doing good. You've got a good job. You're in a nice marketing gig. Just appreciate where you've gotten up to, because not a lot of people can actually live by themselves in general. Like I'd be lost living by myself. I wouldn't be able to do as much goose as I could if I was living by myself. Just you're killing it, and just understand that there's improvement, obviously, like being self-aware. That goes into our previous podcast with Wilson. Self-awareness and understanding that you can make improvements, just knowing when you're going to implement it and stuff like that. Start making little micro changes. That was also another topic in Wilson's podcast. Micro changes. Start doing things that you wouldn't normally do, like maybe one thing every now and then, and this will start to fix your head and help you improve in the sense of like valuing yourself a bit more if you know you've got that discipline, and you start changing things, going for like a walk in the morning in the sun, like even though waking up an hour earlier than you usually do. Little things like that, or even setting your bed will start to make you feel a bit better. Because I did this when I was feeling bad. And yeah, I feel like once you start implementing small things like that, it will definitely help you. That's me talking from my experiences. I'm not pushing this on to anyone. It's just, this is the point of the podcast essentially, is to push everyone's ideas and experiences out into the world, and possibly have someone come across these podcasts and be like, damn, maybe I should try to implement Isaiah or Dudu's way of dealing with certain things into my life and see how that goes. But that's just me giving a little input on maybe implement like small changes into your life and see how you go from there. You won't notice it straight away. That's one thing I never noticed. I mentioned before that when you're doing it, you don't notice it, you're just going with the flow, you do it, it becomes part of your routine. But when you stop it, you'll notice that you've drifted off a little bit. And I use it as a measuring gauge essentially. So if I'm not sitting in my bed every morning, I know something's wrong. I know something's wrong if I'm not sitting in my bed now, or like my room's getting messy. I know my head's not doing the best, because this is something that I usually do. So I use it as a measuring tool. And then if I ever start to fall back far to like the small changes I used to do, like drink a cup of water every morning, if I fall back to that, I know I'm not doing really good at all. So like it's good to kind of implement, maybe implement into your life. That's maybe something that could help you. But yeah, any input on that, or any more like ways that you've dealt with it besides like kind of covering it up? covering it up is a good way of dealing with certain sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's still something that you're gonna have to work on. Like expression, this is what my brand stands for, is being open with people and not kind of covering it up. But it can be good sometimes, to be honest, like just figuring out how to deal with things yourself and stuff like that. Is there any other ways you deal with your mental health? So that's one way.
I think what you said is perfectly beautiful to say anything else, because I feel like what you're doing with Goose Apparel, it's basically what you just said. And having people who are aware of the pains, because you speak from personal experience and you're trying to make others who are going through a similar thing feel at home and have safe spaces, and I think that's so important and so beautiful. And because you're highlighting also men's mental issues, which is often overlooked or covered up, as we would say.
I wouldn't say I'm just highlighting men's. Men's is obviously a big one. It's not taken serious enough, if I'm going to be honest. I know a lot of people struggling, from family, friends to myself even, but women as well. Women struggle. Like, we're all human at the end of the day, and I believe women have their own experiences. I'm not going to speak on how women deal with their mental health, or like how mental health, what they experience and stuff, because I'm not known in that area. That's why I get people like yourself on the podcast who talk about your experiences. But I'm more specialized because I'm a man. Obviously, I'm specialized in like understanding men a bit more and how we deal with it. But yeah, like in all honesty, everyone struggles with mental health, and I believe if it's not covered or try to like be dealt with, it affects every other aspect in your life. From working on something you have a passion for, from anything, to be honest. If your mindset isn't clear, or your headspace isn't doing well, you can't do anything. It affects friendships, family, your passions. It affects you going to the gym even. Like, this is why I'm trying to promote a healthier community of communication, because I understand the value of being able to talk to people and how much it has helped me in my prior experiences with mental health. And I just want to help people understand that it's a right to talk about your feelings, and it's a right to be open, it's a right to feel sad, it's a right to be happy, as long as you're approaching it in the right manner. I believe it can definitely, self-awareness, just being self-aware of your emotions, for example, and sharing your experiences can actually help people. So like, for example, I'm sad, I'm walking around in a sad goose here on a shopping center. Someone's aware of the brand, they come across it, they see it. Maybe I'm hoping that people to eventually start to initiating conversations and talk to each other. Be like, hey man, I'm aware of that brand, I know what it means. That's a sad goose tree, yeah? Well, what's going on? Whether you want to be open with that person to a big extent, I reckon even just acknowledging that you're sad, having people around you and acknowledging that you're sad, and maybe somewhat helping you, maybe buying you a coffee or something like that. Small gestures like that can go a long way. If it's your close friend that approaches you and you want to be really open with them, even that's good. It's just, yeah, there's so much behind it. It's like, I believe a lot of value can come from this brand, and I'm excited to see how far I can come with it and how many people I can actually help. But yeah, you go yourself. You got any questions? We're good? Okay. Guys, we're done for the podcast today. Thank you to Dudu for honestly bringing an amazing podcast, giving your experiences and life experiences out there. You've definitely possibly helped a lot of people out there. Whoever this comes across, you can maybe they can relate to it and then implement it into their life, or even just knowing that someone else is maybe going through a similar thing helps people know that they're not alone. So thank you, Dudu, for coming on to this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's all good, Dudu. No stress. This is the second podcast now, so this is a pretty exciting jump for me. I feel like I definitely made a little bit of improvement, but that's thanks to the help of Dudu. She was definitely guiding me through this process. Thank you guys for listening, and goodbye.